Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Thursday. It is September the 18th. Our chat is absolutely the worst. You guys are terrible. They said that I am starting today's show like Dan and Kash Patel started their reforms at the FBI. It might be 6 to 8 minutes later than you thought. Yeah, you're right. I spent a little bit of time this morning trying to grab some extra clips. There's a lot of video footage that I want to try to use as an argument today. It's interesting that everybody is talking past what I think the real problem is, but today's show is entitled something to the effect of Good Night to the Jimmy Kimmel Live show, ABC supposedly canceling him. Are we going to have a discussion about cancel culture on the right? Is that what we really want? I don't actually even think that's what's going on here. And also, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Jimmy Kimmel's show was apparently permanently canceled or indefinitely suspended yesterday, so that I know a little something about that. So we will, in fact, talk about those things. We're going to talk about the media-thirsty DOJ and FBI. I don't think we can get away from that. And even DHS. There's a media thirstiness to this Donald Trump administration 2.0. Some folks making some comments on that. We'll get into that as well. I think it's worth discussing. What else do I've got? Vaccines. Childhood vaccine seems to have gone into the back burner, but there have been some hearings that have been held in the last probably 2 weeks, of which I've been keeping an eye on. And when I was watching them, they immediately went back burner to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And so we're going to bring them back up to the forefront again because some decisions are going to be made this week. Really weird to me that the left has just decided that like it used to be a leftist thing. It was the crunchy granola, like lunatic hippie moms up in Oregon and California and Washington State that were refusing vaccines. And now that it's become probably more of a mainstream right-wing position, which is kind of interesting to see that switch, suddenly the left is all in on them. And you're a bad person if you don't get behind them. So that's an interesting sort of dynamic to have watched played out. And let's call it the last 25 years in my sort of adult life. So I don't know what goes on there, but I do see this instinctive move to defend government power. And that does seem to be very leftist. So we've got some discussion of that. Before we get into the program, I wanted to also mention, I saw this comment by Brandon Straka last night, and he said, I can't believe that Charlie Kirk is dead and we're all just, nobody knows how to process this. And this was exactly the same thing that my wife and I were talking about yesterday. It was just before dinner, and she's upset, and it doesn't feel real because there's so many video clips of that man speaking in his relatively short life. There's so many examples of him going out and engaging with people, and it's been captured on video. There's hundreds and hundreds of hours to it. That may be the biggest gift that his children will ever have in this horrible circumstance. And at the same time, I don't have a historical analog of living through a time like where RFK was shot, or where Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, or any of these other sort of prominent assassinations that took place in the 60s and 70s. I don't have a way to see what that felt like then and to be able to compare it against today. But it's so bizarre because we've kind of moved past it in some ways. I see so many people that are trying to quote unquote investigate it online. Can I just tell you that I absolutely despise this? I sent a message to our former producer, Ryan Matta, who keeps tagging me in these videos that he makes that are complete dog. They're garbage. And I'm like, you don't have the video footage. You don't have the interviews. You don't have the physical evidence. You don't have the ability to investigate it. So this whole like internet investigator trend, I'm fatigued by that. If there's no evidence, then it must be the Jews or it must be Israel. And yeah, I'm using those things in sort of like a sloppy and sarcastic way because I think it's decidedly unserious. The absence of evidence is not evidence. And so there's dumb people saying dumb things about this over and over again. And all it does is it just distracts me from the reality of what actually happened. It's truly horrific. A guy went out, engaged in debate. I think some folks have gone out on the sort of the harder right, people that are more closer to like my positions. And the things they were saying is like Charlie was sort of moderate, considering how patient he was with people. And we're turning it into a cartoon of it must be about Israel, despite any evidence about that. There's serious voices that are bringing this up, and everybody's bringing their own lens. I've seen dozens of members of this administration come forward and say, the last tweet or the last text message that Charlie Kirk said to me was, get all the illegal aliens. And another one was like, go and get the sanctuary cities, or go make the FBI great again. Like, all of them all want to turn this tragedy into something that they can go out there and celebrate. Like, they're trotting on his memory. They're trading in his memory. And even the organization Turning Point seems to have done that. They're immediately going out and doing fundraising, and people have sent me on the text messages they got asking for money and asking to go out there and make more chapters. And it's all tiring. I'm fatigued by that. I think many of you may be as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and say that you're not alone if that's the way you feel about it. And it's not your fault. And everybody looks for meaning in tragedy, but maybe the meaning is just to take a breath, like we ended yesterday's show. Just go out there and hug your kids. All right. Speaking of hugging your kids, speaking of unplugging, speaking of going out there and doing things that are outside of the media space and that are not going to be on your phones, how about you take your phone and you toss it in a Faraday bag? I may have been late to the show today, but I was on time getting my phone in a Faraday case and getting it the hell away from me. By the way, if you think that the Israelis or all the intelligence communities don't have this technology, you're wrong. There's no such thing as Israeli registered phones walking around in Utah. Your phone is a tracking device. Everybody who works in a government agency understands this, especially if they work in intelligence. The big tech corporations, the corporate data brokers, cyber criminals, everybody wants a piece of your digital footprint. They all want to get access to where you are, where you've been, what you do, and how you do it. Silent exists so that you can stop that. Put your phone in a Faraday bag like theirs. It's going to block all the wireless signals. There are a lot of Faraday products. Most of them do not work very well. There are many leaks. These have not leaked in my experience so far, and I've tested them. Cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, RFID, near-field communications. There are many different ways that your phone tracks you wherever you go. If you want to turn it off, you simply toss it into one of their bags, and you are good to go. It's the same technology that special operations teams use, counterintelligence investigators, people who are working in the intelligence sphere, assets, agents, intelligence officers, take your pick. Blocking signals, avoiding surveillance, keeping your comm secure is how you do it. You can also do it to just have some peace and quiet and to shut out all the noise. And that's why they're called silent, as I understand it. It's one of their pillars of health is to just disconnect from your digital footprint. Go to slnt.com/Kyle, slnt.com/Kyle, silent.com/KYLE. Make sure you guys check them out. There's a link in the show description. You guys can go silent today, become invisible to the outside world, get off the grid completely, and capture a little bit more of your sanity, control of your little digital footprint, and maybe take a couple of footprints off the map there. All right, let's get into today's program. We've got a lot to cover. Here we go. All right, so my friends, let's see where we start. Where do we start? Let's start with weird people doing weird things. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. I shared some information earlier today on social media, and I always get a gauge of where people are at. And we have this great instinct on the, let's call it just in America right now. We're quick to rush to judgment because we looked at your face and we don't like your stupid face. We don't like the way you said things. So we're just going to say that you must be guilty of the thing that we think you are. That's not a really great way to investigate things. It turns out it's not a particularly smart way to go about a lot of things. This is a story that is being covered by ABC News today. Susan, I think her name is Monarez. I'm sorry if I mispronounced this. Her name, she's the former CDC director. She was recently fired. She was recently fired like 3 weeks ago. And that's going to be relevant to the story in just a second. She tells the committee the true reason she believes she was fired. This whole story is weird, but it all ties into the vaccine mandates and the vaccine requirements and the discussions about them going on over at HHS and CDC. The former Center for Disease Control and Prevention director, Susan Monarez, I'm going to say it that way, on Wednesday said she was fired by Donald Trump and Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. for, quote, holding the line on scientific integrity. Well, we have a lot of sympathy for people that hold the line here at the Suspendables. Well, we're not a network, are we? But the Suspendables conglomerate, the Suspendables group chat, definitely looks at people who hold the line, and we have a soft spot in our heart. And I'm not 100% sure about what's going on with this lady. And maybe it is because she believed she was holding the line on scientific integrity, and I can't impugn those motives. But I don't know if that was her job. She gave a detailed timeline before the Senate's Health Committee on the chain of events that led to her abrupt ousting, a pivotal moment, she said in an August meeting. RFK Jr. told her to preemptively accept recommendations from a CDC vaccine advisory panel and to fire career officials overseeing vaccine policy. So this is going to come into that space. This was a story that was covered a couple days ago by the New York Times, and I've got their headline as well. We'll cover that in a second. She said, "I would not commit to that. I believe that the true reason that I was fired." She said Kennedy was very upset when she pushed back in the meeting. You should accept that people will push back, and at the end of the day, the person who makes the decision is the person that's in the space. If you can't have leaders that are going to do the work that you want them to do, then they can't be there. But if you can't delegate them and have them make their decisions, then they shouldn't be there in the first place either. Kennedy had a hearing before a different Senate panel, and he disputed her versions of the events. He denied telling Monarez to accept the vaccine recommendations without scientific evidence. He claimed she was fired because she told him that she was untrustworthy. The weird thing is apparently these things were taped. Now, I have this exchange between the former CDC director and Senator Mullins from Oklahoma. And it is one of the weirder back and forths. He's not the most artful of speakers. He doesn't even sound like an Okie to me, at least not the Okies that I dealt with, but I think he is an Okie guy. They have this bizarre discussion about fact patterns. And we're not talking about like some ancient historical event. We're talking about something that happened 3 weeks ago. I want all of you to just sit for a second and think about a job that you've been fired from. That's usually a pretty traumatic experience, especially if you didn't expect it. Think about a job that you quit from under, frustrating circumstances. I can go all the way back to the time when I was 19 years old and remember specific details, where I was, what time of day it was, what I was doing, what the conversation sounded like, etc. I definitely can do that for my FBI job because that came and was pretty traumatic for me and my family. This woman's got really hard decisions just trying to decide whether or not she's going to talk about simple things. Like, can she talk about who her attorneys are or when she contacted them in the first place? And I don't know why she's being evasive, but she's clearly being evasive. Now, I had somebody also comment that maybe she's on some anti-anxiety medication. That's also a possibility. Certainly possible. I don't want to speculate on medication, but medication does make people have bad memories, respond sort of illogically, and be outside of touch with regular humanity. Watch this exchange. I don't know that she's hiding something. I just know that she's not being forthright. And I think everybody else knows. I think she knows it too, but I'm not sure why she's doing it. And I'm not even sure if she knows why. It's just really awkward. It's an awkward exchange. If this was the kind of person that I had in leadership, I probably wouldn't want them there if this was her standard response to anything.
What day was you fired?
I believe I was fired on August 27th.
Okay, what day was the first time you seeked counsel? Not retained, seeked counsel.
I don't recall.
We can get those records, so maybe you should recall them, because I think you might have an honesty issue here that we want to point out. So what day was it that you spoke to the attorneys the first time?
It was on or before the day I was fired.
No, that's when you retained them. You already testified to that. When did you speak to them?
Again, it was on or before the day I was fired.
So you retained them the first time you spoke to them?
I believe that I retained them the first time I spoke to them.
Was you let go in the middle of the night? Was you let go in the middle of the day?
I believe.
Now, I know the answer to this, so let's be honest here.
I believe I received. I believe I received an email from the White House indicating that my services were no longer needed.
What time was that?
Sometime in the afternoon, sometime in the evening.
Late evening, late afternoon, late evening?
Probably.
And so you got hold of the attorneys late at night?
I'm sorry, what?
You got hold of the attorneys after business hours to retain them?
I don't recall.
I think you do.
I really.
I think you don't recall retaining your attorneys.
I don't recall the specific time or day that I returned them.
See, I still think you have an honest issue because it wasn't that long ago. And I think I could recall when I hired an attorney. And I could definitely recall the time I did it. Now, let's ask, when did you remove the political appointees from the floor that you work on?
Again, I did not. I moved some political appointees in, and I put my senior advisors together.
When did you remove them and remove their access to your floor? And you had a conversation with the secretary about this. When did that happen? Like how many days into your job?
I'm gonna stop it right there only because it's really, really strange to watch her facial expressions. She seems to has the disconnect between what normal emotions would be, the way that she's thinking. She looks confused. She looks, and she seems like she's obfuscating, but I don't know why. And it's not obvious to me from this clip, and it's not obvious to me from following this story. What's going on here? She has this similar moment where she's not speaking about her attorneys, and there's always the small possibility that the attorney said, hey, don't, box yourself into a corner by making any, clear statements, because we're going to litigate when you were in fact fired, or whether it was constructive termination, or whether you resigned, or what the circumstances are. I don't know. Maybe there's this argument that is remaining to play out. But this is why people don't trust certain people in government. If you go out there and you have these very non-human, it's so easy to be transparent and honest. It really should be. I've done 8 hours of depositions in the last 2 months. I sat down and had questions. And so you ask me a question, even if it's stupid, I can answer the question. It's not that hard. She's not a dumb lady. You can tell that. She's bright. She's a doctor. She was able to become the director of the CDC. She was the next sort of in line. But the previous CDC director was kind of sketchy as well. Here's another little clip where she's being asked about her attorneys. And again, I don't know if you're hiding something, if you're trying to control everything, if you are desperately just running out the clock. And it just comes off as strange. It comes off as somebody that I wouldn't want working in any agency. I wouldn't want you managing a Baskin Robbins, let alone like something like the CDC. And I can understand why you would say, I don't have any confidence in this person. When I ask them questions, everything is a debate. It's a negotiation. I feel like I'm talking to an AI lawyer that's advocating for a position that doesn't even exist. Here's sort of this exchange, and it gets weirder. Watch this. And look, maybe this is meds. Again, this could be meds being let go from a government position, being called in front of a Senate hearing panel is probably very anxiety provoking. I have to imagine it is. So maybe that's the human interaction that we're seeing here.
I'm really shocked. Most people come and introduce their families. I'm really shocked that we have behind you anti-Trump lawyers that you've invited. Do you want to introduce your lawyers that you brought with you today? I'm just noticing that they're aiding with your testimony. They keep handing you notes and whispering in your ears. So I figured you should probably, for the record, put their names in the record.
My lawyers have been publicly associated with me already.
So you're refusing to acknowledge the attorneys that are present in this hearing room helping you with your testimony?
The attorneys that I have been.
I mean, I've been in the legal world for a long time, and attorneys generally aren't shy about stating appearances and saying when they're here helping clients. So is there some reason you don't want to introduce the senators to the lawyers that are here and put their names on the record?
Yeah, I think.
I mean, they're passing you notes, so I think it's fair for the record to know who's passing you notes while you testify. And I really didn't mean that and trying to be adversarial here. I just think for the record, it's probably good to know who's passing notes and whispering in your ear.
I think my counsel is happy to follow up with you. I was hoping that we would stay focused on the critical issues related to.
We're at a hearing because you called the chairman and talked about these issues, and the chairman has called a hearing, and now you're here testifying, and you have attorneys giving you notes and whispering in your ear, presumably about your testimony. So for the record, who is here with you, helping you with your testimony? I mean, look, I'm a judge. I'm a former federal prosecutor. I was attorney general. I was a lawyer. Like, this is not an abnormal thing.
Yeah, my attorneys have been publicly associated with me.
What attorneys are here with you at this hearing, assisting with your testimony and whispering in your ear? Please state their names for the record.
My two attorneys that are in the room would be happy to follow up with you after the discussion.
Like, what the hell is that? I can't. It's so crazy to watch. It goes on for 3-4 minutes. Can you name the people behind me? The people behind me have been named by other people previously in public. Can you say what their names are for the record? This is a simple question. They're advising you in your testimony. We'd like to make sure that their names are also included. It's like, I don't know any other word for it. Crazy, weird, strange, unusual, bizarre behavior. These are all normal things. By the way, the woman who's asking, that's Senator Ashley Brooke Moody from Florida. She's the junior senator there. she just laid out her judicial resume, her background in dealing with lawyers, of which she is one. She was a assistant United States attorney. She was a federal prosecutor. She was a circuit court judge, and she was the attorney general of Florida. She's got some credentials to stand on and say, hey, lady, when I deal with lawyers, they introduce themselves with who they are. This is like they're public figures, and there's no reason to hide this. So what is going on there? And all of it all just, it leaves me with more questions than answers. And here's Ron Paul trying to get to the sort of the meat and potatoes of this issue. All this seems to obfuscate. That seems to be a word that I'm hearing a lot of late. Obfuscate from what this hearing maybe was about, or maybe even what the original problem was, this discussion of vaccines. I've got some great stuff that I was holding on to from the last 2 weeks that I'm going to play you as well. Sorry, not Rand Paul. Rand Paul, who's currently in office, he's trying to hone in on, can we just talk about childhood vaccines and why this would be the case and why you were having contention and why this has been so politicized? Because it doesn't seem that reasonable. We should be able to have discussions. There's no fiat that the CDC is supposed to come out and say, you cannot question us. Theoretically, we pay for them.
So you resisted firing people who have this idea that the COVID vaccine should be at 6 months. That's what this is about. You didn't resist firing the perfect, beautiful scientists that are career people and unobjective and unbiased. You wouldn't fire the people who are saying that we have to vaccinate our kids at 6 months of age. That's who you refuse to fire.
So that assertion is not commensurate with the experience that I had with the individuals who are identified to be fired.
Did any of the people you...
I've got to stop for a second. I arrested a guy on January 20th, 2017 for firing a laser pointer into the Park Police helicopter and for firing it into law enforcement vehicles that were driving, so hitting the windshield with it. He was a alleged Antifa member. He kind of had that look. He was part of American University, which is where a lot of the Antifa information came out of on January 20th. So that Disrupt J20 thing, that was Donald Trump's first inauguration, right? And I was on ground. That was my first. Was that my first? That was my first in the field arrest that had nothing to do with like a planned organization or planned operation. And you don't get to make those a whole lot in the Bureau. I remember it very, very vividly. And I also remember asking that guy a question because we started asking him questions. We detained him and we said, do you have a laser pointer on your person? You know, are you carrying any weapons? And his answer sounded almost exactly like what this former CDC director said. He was like, on the advice of the belief that counsel with the dignity of holding innocence until the proven of nature, the Fifth Amendment states that no reasonable intermission for probable cause to guilt with having the, and you're like, dude, it's a simple question. Is there a laser pointer up your sleeve where I saw you put the laser pointer up your sleeve? Do you have any other weapons up there? And then, you know, he was frisked and then he had a huge, like, lightsaber size laser pointer. This clip is like the same energy in so many ways. It's the same sort of weird, I don't know what it is. I don't know what she's doing, but that smoothie of it's not commensurate with the experience of the people who have lived in this scenario. Okay. I don't get it. I don't know what you're saying. I don't know why you're saying it. And I don't understand how any normal people would be. Let's go back to it. But I want you to just tune in on when people are being evasive. I often think that there's something else going on there. And that's why we're not even having he's just asked you a quick question. Do these people have objections to the way that the vaccine discussion is going on? And we're getting this smoothie of like pseudo legalese.
With the experience that I had with the individuals who are identified to be fired.
Did any of the people you refused to fire, did any of the people you refused
to answer the question?
Did any of the people you refused to fire believe that we should change the vaccine schedule and no longer force 6-month-old kids to take it? Every one of them was adamant we should keep it at 6 months. Everybody's alarmed. We're going to change the childhood routine. Well, we should. There is no medical reason. What is the medical reason to give a hepatitis B vaccine to a newborn whose mom has no hepatitis?
So none of the discussion points that you just brought up were ever...
That's changing the childhood schedule.
Do you allow her to answer the question?
Regular order. You have your time, Bernie. I got mine. Look, This is the debate over changing the childhood schedule. The hepatitis B vaccine on the schedule is given to newborns. What is the medical, scientific reason and proof for giving a newborn a hepatitis B vaccine if the mom is Hep B negative?
I want to go back to the assertion associated.
What is the medical reason for giving a hepatitis B vaccine to a newborn? See, everybody's like blithely going along. We can't change the childhood. You're somehow terrible if you want to change the childhood. We should be discussing what is the childhood vaccine schedule, and the burden should be on you. You want to make all the kids take this? The burden is upon you and the people you wouldn't fire to prove to us that we need to give our 6-month-old a COVID vaccine and that we need to give our 1-day-old a hepatitis B vaccine. That's what the debate ought to be about, not whether all vaccines are good or whether we live in Alice in Wonderland.
If you didn't watch that, if you just listened to that clip, what you missed were so many strange and I would say disconnected facial expressions. It's so odd. It's just, it actually is the best example I've ever seen of the disconnect between reality and what goes on in these hearings. Normal people, if you had a normal discussion with that lady, it wouldn't last that long. Nobody would have that conversation for nearly as long if they weren't under oath and sitting at a table where they have to be in front of a microphone. If you went up to one of your neighbors and you're like, hey man, did the mail come today? And he was like, I want to go back to the original assertion about the necessary nature of the postal movement in the privatized semi-public endeavor. And you'd go, whoa, dude, if I go to my mailbox right now, am I going to get mail or is there not mail there? And he'd be like, I think the original conjecture, and you're like, all right, dude, have a great day. I'm out of here. I got to go. I am not going to sit and have this weird, whatever, like it's misfiring AI conversation. It's super theatrical, but why? Actually, amusingly enough, there were some somewhat decent points that were made previously in prior hearings. This was also in front of Senate panels where they actually tried to get into the meat and potatoes of information. What you don't often find, though, is people asking these questions Socratically. Even Rand Paul failed at that. You know, he said, what is the reason? You don't say, what is the reason? You say, is there a reason? And the reason you ask that is open-ended questions. Then you let people say whatever their answer is, and that may or may not be good. Maybe that's the interview/interrogator version that goes in my mind, as opposed to how you present this stuff when you're doing theatrical hearings. But you're actually supposed to ask people, hey, do you know anything about this thing? Oh, okay, cool. What do you know about it? It turns out, would it surprise you to know that that's actually not true? And and then you go through dismantling the situation. Here's Ron Johnson, who I actually think did a pretty good job. And he's discussing this. This is about a week and a half ago on this exact topic without any of the, whatever this is, maybe somebody's on a bunch of clomazepine or something, or maybe somebody's on a benzo. He doesn't, the doctor's here. This is a Stanford epidemiologist. And then there's an attorney who basically does a bunch of litigation on behalf of, I think, the people that RFK used to work with. And so we'll kind of play some back and forth about maybe a more substantive discussion. I don't know why we're not having it in that hearing with the former CDC director and why she's so strange, but here's something of substance.
Mr. Scott, how much do you know about the mRNA technology?
A fair amount.
So is the mRNA that's encapsulating the lipid nanoparticle, is that true mRNA?
Is that true mRNA?
I mean, true mRNA, your messenger RNA, degrades very rapidly in the body. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Correct.
So the mRNA in the injection, is it true mRNA? Does it degrade rapidly in the body? Do you not know?
I do know. Yes, it does, but
it does. It does not. It's modified. It's modified mRNA, and it's designed not to degrade. And there are studies that show it sticks around the body. We don't know how long. The lipid nanoparticle. Do you realize that it was designed to permeate difficult to permeate barriers, like the blood-brain, like the placenta barrier? Did you know that? Did you believe when Fauci told us that the mRNA shot would stay in the arm? Did you believe that? It's a simple yes, no. I mean, do you believe the COVID injection stayed in everybody's arm? Do you believe that's what happened?
Primarily.
You think so, huh? Were you aware of the Japanese FOIA of the study that was conducted of biodistribution, where in rats it biodistributed all over the body, accumulated in the adrenal glands, in the ovaries. Because the lipid nanoparticle is designed to permeate difficult to permeate barriers, they knew, the designers knew, and they did a study that would biodistribute all over the body, but our CDC, Anthony Fauci, said it was going to stick in the arm. Now, do you know what the mRNA does? It's not a traditional vaccine, is it? Do you realize that? It's not an attenuated or a dead virus. It's messenger RNA, modified RNA, that's encapsulated in a lipid nanoparticle that distributes all over the body, and when it attaches to a cell, it unloads its mRNA into the cell and turns the cell into a manufacturing cell of a protein that is toxic to it. Do you read?
Okay, I'm just going to cut it off. Like, where's the witness? There's a guy named Jake Scott, MD, Dr. Scott. Again, the bio I found on him said he was working out of Stanford. I'm sure he's really bright. But what is happening there? Why does he have no answers? The reason you put somebody, he's being asked actual questions and he just freezes. Now, I've had this discussion with a friend of mine who's a physician and has been, he's my age, so he's been a physician going on 15 years now after med school, and he spent his whole life working towards that goal. And I've also seen it online, these discussions that physicians are now getting asked more sophisticated and more exact questions, precise questions than they've ever been asked before. There was a period of time when if you went to your doctor and they said something to you, you didn't know anything about it, so you just did what the doctor said. But you didn't have access to AI analysis in the same way that if I talk to an attorney right now and I say something and they go, well, I think we might be able to go do this. And I go, well, that type of motion, is that not recognized in this particular federal district? I don't think that's going to be the case. But I do think that the Texas Defamatory Mitigation Act may come into play. And they go, I'd have to go do something. It's like, well, I did some preliminary research on it and I have access to an incredible amount of information. And so do you now, as someone who's out there looking after your own health, and you want to go out there and make the best decision. You want to be informed in your consent, right? Do these physicians just not prepare for any pushback whatsoever? Do they just accept what pharmaceutical reps are saying? I don't know the answer to this, by the way, but I cannot believe that this guy didn't know simple things that were out there available to all of us that paid attention, that were interested. If you're a witness when it comes to COVID vaccine efficiency and safety, and you don't even know the mechanism, and you're not comfortable with answering it out loud, and the sound of your own voice makes you shrink away from the microphone. It's really bizarre. Again, it's equally as bizarre as a CDC director or former CDC director who can't even open her mouth and talk about things. So that's why you're seeing this discussion. This is from NPR. The CDC vaccine advisors are meeting this week. How it could affect policy. Everyone's talking about this policy this week. Again, it got backburnered by people on the conservative side because there was a prominent and terrible assassination that took place. But isn't it weird to see these people not answer simple questions? Look, I have a simple question and I never got a good answer to it. And maybe somebody knows the answer. You'll put it in the comments. My understanding, and I've spent, let's call it, I probably have 2 or 3 dozen hours in biology, anatomy, and physiology, and so on. And I also have, a background as a paramedic, and I spent 10 years. I got thousands of clinical hours. I'm certainly not a doctor and I'm not a nurse, but I had a lot of experience dealing with stuff, and I'm a pretty bright guy. I'm self-educated in a lot of it, though. How is it not an autoimmune function to introduce something into your body that causes your body to produce something that your body recognizes as other? To me, that fit the textbook definition of what an autoimmune response is. Autoimmune, as I understand it as a layperson, is essentially that your body turns around, recognizes a part of your body that is not a part of your body, and then attacks it. And then you have inflammatory cascades and all kinds of different negative reactions. So why did that not come up? That was something I knew about in 2021. Probably many of you did as well. It was like, I got questions. How is this going to be okay? How long does it stick around? And this doctor who's there as a witness doesn't know. Is that not strange? Aaron, I think his name is Siri, is an attorney, and he admits, hey, not a doctor, but he was there also on the other side of the table, and he was representing the other position, which is that there's some questions about vaccine efficiency and safety, and we should be able to ask those questions of our government. We don't just get ruled by fiat. And so this question was presented, and he actually had statistics and information, and he wasn't scared of the microphone, and he looks like a person who doesn't have as much to hide to me. Now, it doesn't mean that they both are being dishonest or not. One of them was more honest than the other. What it means is I just look at human behavior and 40-something years of experience of talking to people. When people don't say things at all and they seem afraid to open their mouth like they're going to catch themselves in a trap, it makes me ask, what are they hiding and why? Are they just have stage fright? Or is there something worse going on? And it looked like more than stage fright to me. I'm open to being wrong, but there were two different people doing very weird things talking about this very simple subject that shouldn't actually be that controversial. We should be able to have open debates about it. All right. While we're talking about things like this and distrust with government and so on and so forth, let me just do a quick read for our friends over at My Patriot Supply. Again, the website is mypatriotsupply.com/Kyle, mypatriotsupply.com, all spelled out, /Kyle. Make sure you're using that website. You're going to find that they have a whole advertisement for September as National Preparedness Month. It's a perfect time to ask yourself some questions that you should be able to answer and not be afraid of the microphone. How much food do you have in case of an emergency? Are you ready? What about if the tap went dry tomorrow? Can you handle water? Can you clean it? Do you have a source for it? What would you do if you lost power? How long would you be able to go without it? Do you have an opportunity to fix that? If the answer is not great on all of these or any of these, then you can check out my folks over at My Patriot Supply and make disaster preparedness easy, and it's affordable, and they're making a huge bundle that is available called the Preparedness Month Mega Bundle. You're going to get over $1,500 in free equipment with that. They have all the things that we just mentioned for solutions and more. It's a full year's worth of food. That's 6 months for you and another adult. That's a great option. Check it out. If you guys want to do it all in one fell swoop, you want to just bite the bullet and deal with it, mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE. This is a personal insurance policy that you are going to do to be able to take care of yourself. If you're watching on TV and you want to hold your phone up and scan that QR code, it'll take you right to the website. That's super easy. If you want to go and click on the link in the show description, you can do that too if you're on a phone or if you're on an internet terminal. All right. Check out the folks over there. Make yourself prepared. There's 90 essential preparedness items, $1,500 in free items added, absolutely free. mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE. Yeah, think about these things before they come up. You never want to be the person who's caught behind the eight ball on this. All right, another story. This is coming from New York Times. Same exact thing. Kennedy said he wouldn't take away vaccines. I don't even know what they're talking about with this, but it says this is the week where they're going to actually discuss it. This is a doctor who's saying, this is a primary care physician, so same thing as my buddy does. I was counseling a patient who was planning on becoming pregnant. I assume they mean a female. Do you think they know? In addition to prenatal vitamins, I discussed vaccines recommended by the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. My patient cut me off. Is it a choice or is it mandatory? That's a reasonable choice. Of course, it's always a choice, folks. You never have anything that is mandatory when it comes to medicine. You can always opt out. Even if you're in a hospital, if they want to do something and you don't, leave. You can leave what's called AMA, and you don't have to sign anything. You can physically just walk out. They cannot stop you. And if they do, you got real problems. Okay, doctor says it's your choice, of course, although I explained why vaccinations during pregnancy is important to help protect newborns from an array of serious diseases. But because of how HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I wonder how much longer I'll be able to offer my patients the choice of that protection. Well, you can always offer them the choice. They're not going to take these things away. What are you talking about? This month, Mr. Kennedy testified in front of Congress, repeated what he promised. I'm not taking away vaccines from anyone, but this flies in the face of what Americans are experiencing. As a result of FDA restrictions on COVID vaccines that were put in place last month, vaccines are suddenly harder to get. Harder to get? Does that mean that you can't get them? Or does it mean that there's just not going to be this blank check written by the government and by healthcare companies? Average risk adults in many states can no longer walk into their pharmacy and get a vaccine as they had the year prior. Most children will need a medical evaluation before they get it. Is that not the default position that you should actually have it necessary for that person? I don't get it. This is the first time I've ever heard that you should just have things available to you. Isn't the left the ones that say they want qualifications on all your freedoms? Isn't that what they are? Even those considered high risk are struggling to find shots. A 76-year-old teacher in Pacific Northwest told me that employees in every pharmacy say they're unsure of whether they'll be able to get vaccines. They're talking about flu shots, by the way, and COVID shots. I think that there's a supply and demand curve that's going on right there. And the supply and demand curve says, do people actually want this thing? Are there people out there arguing on behalf of it? Or are people going, you know what? I took your shots. I still got COVID. I've had it 6 times. I'm not getting your shots anymore. So maybe there's just people are going, well, we can't make any money on that grift anymore. It does seem pretty strange to act like it's going to be taken away from you. For many of us in healthcare, the unscientific rollback of the COVID vaccine feels like a warning shot. For many of us that are not in the scientific community and are not in the healthcare industry, the rollout of the COVID vaccine felt like a warning shot, like do what we say or you will not be able to exist in our society. And that is going to get to the point about cancel culture that I'm going to cover in a minute. Before we do that, let's play Aaron Series' answers while he was sitting at the exact same hearing that Dr. Jake Scott could not answer questions. He came armed with paper and information and statistics. I haven't validated the sources of them, but he said it under oath, so I'm going to just assume that he at least had some concept of what he was talking about and he could back them up. Check this out.
The claim that childhood vaccines haven't been tested against placebos is demonstrably false. Our findings directly refute false claims about vaccine testing. We documented 661 trials using inert placebo controls with saline, sterile water, or other biologically inactive substances.
He's saying there are 661 inert controlled trials to support the safety of the routine injected childhood vaccines. But when you actually drill down into those 661 trials, let me give you the breakdown of them, okay? 567 of these trials were not a routine injected vaccine for a disease on the CDC childhood schedule. They were for HIV vaccines or other vaccines. So totally irrelevant to the safety of routine injected childhood vaccines. The remaining 94 studies, 70 of them did not involve healthy children. For example, trials of HIV positive adults. Again, completely irrelevant to the safety of childhood vaccines. Of the remaining 24, 21 did not involve a U.S. licensed vaccine it was not a vaccine used as a control to license a currently used U.S. licensed vaccine. For example, a Chinese flu shot, stuff like that. That leaves us with 3 studies, 3, that were claimed to have an inert control that were relied upon to license a routine injected childhood vaccine out of this entire list. Okay, let me walk through those 3. One was a trial for the chickenpox vaccine, the varicella vaccine. Now that trial had, it was only a few hundred people, so it was underpowered anyway. But Dr. Scott says it's got an inert control, but actually it was an injection of neomycin, an antibiotic. That's not inert. No. And neomycin used topically can cause issues, let alone injected. The second one was Gardasil 4 trial, which had thousands and thousands of girls and women in the control group. Almost all of them got an aluminum adjuvant injection. And then there were a few hundred, only a few hundred, that were labeled as a inert control, but they weren't. They got everything that's in the vial except for the antigens in the alum, which included L-histidine, polysorbate 80, sodium borate, yeast protein, not inert. And then the third one was a Gardasil 9 trial, which finally, by the way, did have a saline injection, just a few hundred. There were thousands and thousands of girls, women in that trial. They all got an injection of aluminum adjuvant, which I don't even know it's ethical to inject somebody with something that's neuro and cytotoxic. But leaving that aside, the few hundred that got the placebo, but they only got it if they first got 3 doses of Gardasil 4. So again, not an actual inert control group.
Okay, this is how adversarial hearings are supposed to go. You present your perspective, and then somebody says, I disagree with the evidence you're presenting, and here's the reasons why. These are the studies. This is why I think they are not valid. And somebody else goes, yeah, but this is what you don't understand about that. There's some additional context provided. None of this happened. We're talking about injections of things. By the way, to say something is inert simply because they took the quote unquote active medical ingredient out, but they still hit them with all of the different preservatives that sit inside the vial. That's been the ongoing claim and the concern. Was it thimerosal that was turning into mercury? Where was it going in the body? Was it excreted out the kidneys and did somebody urinate it out, or did it actually go and sit somewhere in a fat deposit, whether it's in your brain or other places, and did it cause some sort of toxicity and some sort of neurological effect? There's a lot of discussions that are totally reasonable that reasonable people of good faith can engage in. If the only way that we're going to consider you the control group is that we've given you one of our vaccines and then we're giving you another one of our vaccines or not, maybe that's good against the population of people who've gotten that vaccine and say whether it's safe to them or there's going to be any notable differences, but it's not against a true control group. And this is real simple stuff. This is what every single, like my kids are going through right now. My 8-year-old is learning about the scientific method. How do you know if something worked? You have to have a control group. What's a control group? It's something that is not affected by the variable that you're testing. But if you introduce other variables, that's not a control group. It can't be. This is the simplest stuff that they teach, middle schoolers and high schoolers. You can teach an 8-year-old. How do I know it's not working? Well, you don't, because you changed other things too. And these were the simple questions, and these were the simple discussions that should be having. If we have people that can't answer simple questions like, who are the attorneys sitting behind you? And they go, well, I believe that it's not commensurate with the experience of the time that I have seen that they have been publicly identified to another time, and they would be willing to, on the record, at a moment. What is wrong with you? Are you a crazy person? That would be the next question I would have. Are you a crazy person? Okay. We're not allowed to have reasonable discussions. So the framing is that they're being canceled because of their beliefs. And the reality is maybe their job performance wasn't up to snuff. I'm going to go into the cancel culture and the danger of this, because everyone that acts like one side or the other has a monopoly on being correct, this is why I'm post-partisan. I know that they don't. I know that there are examples of bad decision theater happening all over the place. I'm going to introduce something that was brought up yesterday. This was something late in the day. Donald Trump put out a True Social post that said he's going to designate Antifa as a terrorist group. Not a lot of details on that. I had 2 different responses. I want to present both of them to you, both by FBI agents with significant amounts of time in the Bureau. One said, finally, thank God, it's about time. Not a very political guy. The other one is a friend of mine that I've known for a very long time, and he's one of my brightest buddies by a lot. And he said, this is going to have zero effect. It will not stop anything or allow anything when it comes to FBI investigations into Antifa groups, but it will increase their ability to recruit. So I want you to think about that. It sounds good. It feels good. I'll read you the story from ABC. I don't think they frame it that way. But there's a real chance that this actually has zero net effect, and all it does is set up an existing problem. That existing problem is allowing the FBI, allowing our DOJ to attack people specifically for ideology, which I am against, like, wholeheartedly, no matter what the ideology is. If you're a post-partisan identifier, if you do not find yourself sitting in one camp, Republican are my team, they're not my team. Democrats are my team, clearly they are not my team either. If you are beyond partisanship at this point, where I don't want to play in the tribal thing, then I can look at this stuff and go, this is unlikely to have effect. But it got a bunch of clapping seals and pom-pom wavers very, very happy. President Trump said early Thursday, he didn't say it early Thursday, he said it yesterday, that he plans to designate Antifa as a major terrorist organization. Antifa is short for anti-fascist. It's an umbrella term for far left-leaning militant groups, but not a singular entity. This is actually true. When Chris Wray said it's an ideology and not a group, he was right and wrong. When Donald Trump says it's a terrorist organization, he's right and he's wrong. There are individual cells that obviously are going to have this ideology, and that's what motivates them. But how they organize is not necessarily at a national umbrella. They are a disorganized conglomerate. It's the same problem with the 764 people, which Kash Patel went out and testified about yesterday. It's like, okay, you've identified yourself under this moniker, this banner, you've taken it on, you have the anti-fascist thing, but it doesn't mean you take orders from someone. There's not a top Antifa person. There's not Antifa that's up there telling everybody what it is, right? That's the joke. That's the cartoon, that there's Antifa. They're a group that resists fascists and neo-Nazis, especially at demonstrations. Sure they are, ABC. Sure they are. What they term as fascists and the things they do are obviously fascistic. They do operate in terroristic fashion, which is to use violence to be able to get a political outcome. That's what they do. So they fit the definition of terrorist, or at least terroristic tactics, but that doesn't mean that they are necessarily the kind of group that we're looking at. And yes, there are obviously examples of turning this DOJ, whether it's our DOJ or their DOJ, it's really not either of those things. It's DOJ's DOJ, it's the FBI's FBI, and it continues to be, which is why I'm so incensed when I see stupid things posted by like the House Judiciary Republicans saying Kash Patel has, past tense, restored the FBI to its original purpose, fighting crime and keeping Americans safe. That is not the original purpose of the FBI, ladies and gentlemen. The original and purpose of the Federal Bureau of Investigation was something very simple. Find complex criminal organizations and investigate them and then enforce existing laws for laws that have been broken. Not fighting crime. That's a made-up thing. That's what Batman does in cartoons. That's what fantasies are about. Keeping Americans safe, that's a myth. That's not real. That's pre-crime. It should be considered illegal. It's certainly unconstitutional. And it is definitely an immoral and fascistic attitude that we're going to have. So I got a real problem with all of this characterization. Trump was in the United Kingdom. He said that Antifa was, quote, sick, dangerous, radical left disasters. He said that he strongly recommends that the funders of Antifa be investigated. Maybe there are people that are throwing money behind it. That would be a good thing that the FBI could actually get involved in. But you got to be real careful because money can also be speech. And if they are not directly funding certain things that result in actual violence, then what are we doing here? Bill Cassidy praised the announcement, saying that Antifa seized on a movement of legitimate grievances to promote violence and anarchy, working against justice for all. The president's right to recognize the destructive role of Antifa, capital A, by designating them a domestic terrorist, or designating them domestic terrorists. This is a nuanced position, and there's not an easy answer to it. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So, obviously, of course, you're going to have people on the hard left that are going to immediately turn around and say, you're the problem. Look what's going on here. This is like communist China. This is like what Putin would do. Of course, we have those examples. We're going to play this, and this all plays into the cancel culture discussion of Jimmy Kimmel, which may not be what either side is framing it as. One is saying, well, you say terrible things about Charlie Kirk, you should be canceled. The other side is saying, how dare you, free speech. Now suddenly we care about liberties again. And then there's me. And I think, well, I bet you the market had something to do with it. So we're going to do that as well. Let me give you a quick little moment to be able to do a break and play a Spotify ad. So if you're listening on the audio program, you may hear a canned ad during right now. And it is a good time as any to remind you that we are on Rumble and we are on YouTube and we are on X when we stream live in the mornings at 0930, generally speaking at 0930, a little bit later today. And then you can also find us at KyleSerafinshow.com. Wherever you're listening, if you scroll down into the show notes, KyleSerafinshow.com is there. That's Spotify. And if you're listening on audio and you thought, hey, maybe I'd like to see the video of that crazy lady's face, that's where you can go do it. Quite easy to do. Check that out and make sure that you are liking and sharing and subscribing all the stuff that we do. Write down where this was. So let's get a little deeper into the discussion of the fascistic, right? Of course, we're going to have people on the hard left that are going to immediately run to overbaked analogies. At least these guys know how to talk. They're not scared of the microphone. The things they say oftentimes are dumb. We're going to find that I think the truth lies in the middle. Here is Chuck Schumer. He's talking about Jimmy Kimmel, but I actually think that it goes to the broader point that we're looking at folks that are trying to act like something that is happening is not happening, and also to kind of like excuse our team behavior. If you don't have to subscribe to a team, then you don't need either of these guys to be right. And it turns out I think the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Senator Schumer, your reaction to this?
It is outrageous. It's a page right out of Xi's playbook. This is just despicable, disgusting, and against democratic values. Trump and his allies seem to want to shut down speech that they don't like to hear. That is not what democracies do. That is what autocracies do. And it doesn't matter whether you agree with Kimmel or not. He has the right to free speech. And so it is just outrageous. It is indicative of autocracy. And I am just outraged by it. Again, this is what dictators do. This is what Xi would do. This is what Putin would do. We are not that country.
Okay, sure we aren't. The story that's coming from, this is Fox News covering it. Disney says Kimmel show will be preemptively, indefinitely suspended following Charlie Kirk assassination comments. ABC host Jimmy Kimmel ignited a firestorm over his comments about alleged assassin Charlie Kirk. Okay, well, that's the claim. This is sort of why there's an official component behind it. The Trump administration actually did weigh in. This is Brendan Carr. He's the FCC commissioner. He's talking about it and whether or not there should be something done. But I think the story is actually much more simple than that. And the reason why is something I will tell you in a second. First, let's listen to the comments and why you have to be cautious about it. And then, like I said, I think everybody is blowing this out of proportion.
You know, when you look at the conduct that has taken place by Jimmy Kimmel, it appears to be some of the sickest conduct possible. As you've indicated, there are, avenues here for the FCC. So there are some ways in which I need to be a little bit careful, because we could be called ultimately to be a judge on some of these claims that come up. But I don't think this is an isolated incident. I mean, you go back to Representative Swalwell, and he had a tweet out last week where he was saying that emphasizing that Charlie Kirk's killer was a straight white male from a Republican family that voted for Donald Trump. In some quarters, there's a very concerted effort to try to lie to the American people about the nature, as you indicate, of one of the most significant, newsworthy public interest acts that we've seen in a long time.
Okay, but does that mean that he doesn't have the right to say what he said? I listened to his comments. I didn't find them particularly interesting. I didn't think it was particularly funny. And I think that actually goes to something that's a little bit deeper. Now, I want you to weigh the following possibilities. Is it more likely that ABC, which has no problem acting woke, as it's been described, has no problem keeping things that are offensive to conservatives on the air, decided to cancel the man simply because he said something that was finally over the line to the point where no longer will we accept mean comments about Charlie Kirk in this moment and the American public has moved? Or is it more probable and more likely that there was a financial incentive behind this because Jimmy Kimmel's show is not well liked? It's not well watched. I think the ratings have been slipping. I think that his ability to be profitable as a business venture is probably gone. And so the market decided. How many of you sit and watch late night television shows? Do you watch Saturday Night Live? Do you watch what used to be Letterman's show? Do you watch Colbert? Do you watch Jimmy Kimmel? Has America moved on from the model of it's 10 o'clock, let's turn on the late night funnies and see what comedians have to say about the news? No, I don't think they do. I think they go to podcasts now and they get it all day long and they don't need that anymore. I don't think that the Daily Show is the only way that young people are getting information. I would bet to you that this is a money decision, that it was decided 100% by people who said, you're no longer a profitable venue. We don't need you. You're not helping what we do in this business, which is to sell advertisements. In order to do that, we need your attention span. This is Sinclair Broadcasting or Sinclair Inc. Sinclair says the Kimmel suspension is not enough. They call on the FCC and ABC to take additional action. This is a representative that owns a bunch of local television stations. They said that they are no longer going to broadcast it. Now, I think this is a virtue signal. I think they are looking for a way to disconnect from ABC programming because it wasn't profitable for them, that they weren't able to sell the local ads at the rates that they wanted to. And that's the reason why, because I've seen Jimmy Kimmel say things that were more offensive, and I've seen him basically outlast his shelf life by a lot, from what I can tell. Sinclair ABC stations are going to air a special in remembrance of Charlie Kirk during the Jimmy Kimmel Live Friday time slot. Sinclair, the nation's largest ABC affiliate group, objects to recent comments made by Mr. Kimmel concerning the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I bet they do. What other things did they object to historically? Anything? Did they care about anything else that he said? Let me give you some examples of other things that Jimmy Kimmel was known to have said. He celebrated all kinds of things that were not very palatable to a conservative audience. He said much nastier things over his time period. I think this is about money, and I'm going to ask you to consider the same answer.
On the subject of terrible things posted online, the biggest story of the day today was Roseanne. Roseanne, you're not going to believe this, but she tweeted something outrageous. I know, yeah, right. The president did it too. It's crazy. Anyway, ABC decided to cancel their highest-rated show, Roseanne, following a tweet in which Roseanne compared an African-American woman, a former advisor to President Obama, to an ape, which did not sit well with ABC management or anyone with a brain, really. So they announced that this first season of the show is also its last, which is a huge blow to business. I mean, we don't have much on this network. We're hoping the NBA Finals goes 11 games this year. We're still airing America's Funniest Home Videos, okay? Roseanne was a very bigly hit for ABC, and we needed it. But I say, why just listen, hear me out. Just because Roseanne is gone doesn't mean the whole show has to go. The show must go on. That's what we say in show business. And with that said, I have an idea that I think makes this work for everyone.
It's not funny. It's not clever. It's a celebration of somebody else's misfortune. They go on and offer the idea that you could just run Roseanne without Roseanne. She's the namesake of the show. They brought it back. It was a big hit, and then they got rid of her. Why? Because they're totally happy to cancel people for certain reasons. I don't think that Jimmy Kimmel being canceled was because he said something mean that people didn't like. He also celebrated Tucker Carlson being kicked off Fox. And it's not particularly funny. Is it semi-clever? Like if you had some snarky a-hole friends that were hard leftists, would they go like, would they give it a smirk? Maybe. Would they belly laugh? Is anybody out there laughing and going like, this is what I show up for? This is what makes my night so good at the end of the night. I just feel so good after I watch Jimmy Kimmel. And I think the question is how far beyond his shelf life was he? Scott Jennings addressed that. First, let me just show you. He cheered on the cancellation recently of Tucker Carlson.
Fox News has severed bow ties with Tucker Carlson. After all these years, they are parting ways, which means he was fired. I mean, that's really what parting ways means. Tucker couldn't be reached for comment. He's already on a plane to Moscow to meet with his manager. But what a shock. I mean, what an absolutely delightful shock this is. Now Tucker can spend more time at home tanning his testicles and touching himself to that sexy green M&M. Sadly, he's probably not done poisoning old people's brains. The question now is, where will he do it next? Will he go to OAN? Will he go to Newsmax? Will he crawl back up Satan's fiery beehole from whence he came? We don't know. One of the most despicable mother Tuckers ever to appear on American television.
I'm not a big fan of cancel culture as a general rule, but I feel no sympathy for people getting a taste of their own medicine over these years. So it's going to be hard for you to get me to get real on your side and care one way or another. I'll tell you what you're not going to get me to do. You're not going to get me on your side with MSNBC going fully off the deep end and saying that losing Jimmy Kimmel, who I don't think is funny, it's hard to imagine. Adam Carolla is hilarious. And he's also pretty common sense brilliant. That's the sort of the goal of being a good comedian. You recognize things that happen in real life, and you make an assessment, and you make an analogy that makes everybody laugh at how silly and ridiculous and funny and accurate it is. And then you got guys like Jimmy Kimmel, who was on the same program with him. They used to do the girls on trampolines, things like, how the hell did that guy, he did blackface. He did a bunch of things that would have gotten canceled by the left. But what do they call him? Like the Pope of woke late night or something like that. So he served a role. You're not going to get my sympathy by going on MSNBC and claiming that this is what McCarthyism was like. That's an actual quotation. So here's the far left side covering the cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel. They're outraged.
So I'm going to tell you a very quick story. When I had lunch with my parents and I asked them about the McCarthy era, Joseph McCarthy, sure. And I said, compare that, living through that, and living through Trump 1.0. And they said that 1.0 was better because at least then there were people speaking up and you didn't feel alone, and that there was a real sense of the First Amendment and you weren't terrified, and it wasn't this idea of silencing. And that is the thing that we talked about on this show, and we've talked about it before, is that slipping into the use of fear and the levers of power to recapitulate a really hideous point in our history in the 1950s of the Red Scare and what was done to people in Hollywood, in academia, in government. And that is the concern, is that you're going to see that kind of silence that is being used through government power.
Yeah.
Okay. You lost me with that. You think it's like McCarthyism? I get the idea that we're talking about government power being exercised. I also think that it had zero to do with it because they have no problem moving on. And they just wanted to get rid of a guy who wasn't selling. That was Andrew Weissman. He's bright. He does sound effeminate. He doesn't sound tough. I get all that. I think he did have one point, though, that was worth knowing. In Trump 1.0, there were more people saying, hey, you shouldn't do that because it's a bad idea. There's less of that now, and I think to the detriment of the Trump administration. There are people that are going fully off the rails, and they make no sense. I'm going to go and play you that in just a second here. Let's just start with summing it all up, which is the left-wing position is crying about canceling speech suddenly. Scott Jennings gets as close to anybody pointing out that I don't think this guy was the talent that he wanted to be and therefore couldn't sell. He refers to him as being past his sell-by date, but he also hones in on this sort of like propaganda messaging that there are supposed to be consequences, and they celebrated it previously. Many people did. Here we go.
You use the phrase propaganda, Professor, and I just have to ask you, what do you consider what Jimmy Kimmel was doing every night or what Stephen Colbert was doing by having on only Democratic guests? Jimmy Kimmel Monday night flat lied about the shooter. Back in the spring, he egged his audience on in cheering on the violence against and wanting, kind of wishing, I think, the downfall of a publicly traded company, Tesla. Do you consider that to be propaganda? Is it good for a business?
Do you consider that to be free speech, Scott?
You use the phrase propaganda.
I'm asking you. You used the words free speech before. Do you consider that free speech?
I consider it to be speech, and he's obviously free to say it.
Will you defend that speech in this country that will defend to the death the speech of others? Will you defend Jimmy Kimmel's speech?
Do I defend Jimmy Kimmel going on television and saying that a shooter from the left?
You defend his right to do so.
He has a right to do so, but he does not have a right to have a television show where he lies his ass off to the American people and attacks half this country on a nightly basis.
Hold on.
Scott, but I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know here. You sometimes offend people. I hear about it on the socials. Do you think that you should then be held to the same standard that you're asking for, that if someone says that you're offensive, that you're not doing civic discourse, that CNN should kick you off? I'm not worried about you and that happening to you in the present regime, but I am worried about other people in this building.
Two things. We don't fall under the same statutory regime. A. B. I expect to get fired every day. This is a tough business. And if I were Jimmy Kimmel, I mean, I'm surprised that a guy who once wore blackface and caused large-breasted women to jump on trampolines lasted this long in the media business to begin with. He was long past his sell date. And the fact that he couldn't realize that and was going down this road of partisan hackery, being unfunny and demonized.
He's not wrong. He's not. I mean, he wasn't that good. So he kind of calls it out there. He doesn't actually make the leap to saying this was a financial decision. But I think when he says the media business is a tough business, that's true. Audience gets sick. They get tired of something. They might hear one thing you say and say, never again. I get these on social media all the time. So worth considering. I want to go back to another piece that we talked about just a second ago about the Antifa thing. Broadly speaking, you're going to see left-wing groups that are going to be suddenly worried about free speech of Jimmy Kimmel. They suddenly care about people being able to not be censored, right? How many of you were canceled on your social media feeds? How many of you found out that you were demonetized or taken away, or people that you like to watch all had that experience that happened over the last 4 years, 5 years? That obviously went down. The White House announcing that they're going to go after specific left-wing groups and Antifa, the ideology, they're claiming anybody associated with that ideology. It is dangerous, but it's not a precedent that Donald Trump created. I don't want you to think that he created out of whole cloth. What I do want to argue is it's objectively bad to do these types of things because all you're doing is creating the same mechanism that gets turned around and weaponized against us the next time. Building a bigger gun is not the answer. That's the Kyle Seraphin position. When you weaponize and build up our federal agencies, that's always the wrong answer because at some point it's going to get turned over to the other team. The other team is more than happy to use it. At least if they have some time that they have to reassemble it, it gives us an opportunity to just try to fight back. I know that they will use these things the minute that they get these institutions back because they've done it before. Here's Kamala Harris reminding you that this is exactly what the left does too. This is why I'm post-partisan. I do not want bigger government. The end. That actually used to be a Republican idea. It's not anymore, so that's why I can't be part of that crew. But we can still mostly align, except I just think some ideas are really bad, and this is a really bad idea. Kamala Harris having the exact same idea, except she's talking about right-wing extremism and radical ideology. Check this. Tell me you don't hear a one-to-one on this.
And will put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter this extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy. And if you profit off of hate, if you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a community.
So after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, there seems to be one refrain from everybody, and that's about the effect of social media. Do you believe that social media is one of the instruments radicalizing America and inciting violence?
Well, it's not. My belief is based on the data, and the data shows that social media is wildly out of control when it comes to radicalizing.
You're dead right. So what did you just say? This guy's
the FBI director. This guy, is Lindsey Graham drunk also, by the way? Is he drunk when he's doing that? Is that his way that he just like connects with the regular people? Lady Graham there? awkward. Allow me to say that building up the gun and handing it over to the other team is never a good idea. It's never the right answer, and it is certainly not a conservative principle. I hate it. You want to hear somebody else who's a cheerleader? Lindsey Graham cheerleads on. So do people that we thought were in our corner. So do people that we thought were part of the same thought process that we have a weaponized government. Didn't he chair this thing called the Weaponization Committee? Were there any results? Did anybody get arrested because of the things that happened during the weaponization of government? Has anyone seen the FBI go after and arrest a politician or former members of the previous administration over this stuff? The answer is no. To say our team got in and therefore that equals victory makes me want to puke. I think it's disgusting. I think it's the thing that you're going to see blind Republican loyalty to. House Judiciary Committee. This is the House, right? Lindsey Graham was in the Senate. They did that the other day. Yesterday, Patel went out in front of the House, and you have Patel restored the FBI to its original purpose. Past tense. It's already done. That's also propaganda. That's also garbage. Here's Jim Jordan. I don't know what else to call this. He's burnishing the idol of the FBI. He's polishing the badge that we have spent the last couple years pointing out is covered in turds. In my book, this is smearing turds around. And when you listen to this, I'm not going to say that I know this for a fact, but I'm going to say I am fairly confident that Patel is lying, because I know for a fact that Steve Baker and the Blaze have reached out to comment to the 7th floor of the FBI and asked them specifically, did you know that your FBI is still investigating Catholics as of last month in Louisiana? And the answer was that they are now looking into it. So I know for a fact that at least the answer to one of these questions is not honest. And a bunch of them are not honest because it's the same damn FBI, people. They haven't changed the people that did the work. They haven't changed all the people at the level. All the people that Kamala Harris was talking about putting into place, they don't need to change it. They just need to give them new marching orders because we've already proven this because of the vaccine stuff. We found out that everybody that still exists in the Bureau is willing to do whatever it takes to keep their job. Whether that means that you're going to investigate Donald Trump, whether it means you're going to fly the new director around and act like you're his buddy, whether it means that you're going to go out there and investigate parents at school board meetings, or you're going to go out and arrest Catholics that are praying outside of pro-life clinics. It does not matter where you're going to get them. Sorry, not pro-life clinics, abortion clinics. They have no problem doing what they're told to do. That's the golden handcuff. And that takes us back to almost 3 years ago to the day when I sat down with Dan Bongino and discussed this. Why do they do these things? Why do members of our law enforcement community at the federal level do the things that we look at and go, how dare you abuse our trust that way? And the answer is it's in their vested interests to maintain a pension and a paycheck, and it'll walk you into tyranny every damn time. Luckily, we have these heroes of the Republic with their rolled up sleeves and their theatrical bullshit. And here's Jim Jordan making it up like because our team is there, everything is good now.
Director, yes or no, is the FBI still spying on parents at school board meetings?
No, sir.
Is the FBI still targeting Catholics?
No, sir.
Is the FBI still spying on President Trump?
I don't believe so.
Is the FBI still censoring Americans?
No, sir.
Is the FBI still targeting Americans for shopping at Cabela's or purchasing Bibles?
Nobody is targeted for their faith.
Is the FBI still targeting Americans who are pro-life?
Nobody is targeting anyone for their beliefs.
Is the FBI still cooking the books on crime data?
The crime data is real.
Is the FBI still purging agents for conservative viewpoints?
No one at the FBI has asked their viewpoints on politics.
Is the FBI still labeling the Betsy Ross flag, the flag of the American Revolution, a hate symbol?
No.
All right. The answer to some of those things are clearly false. Those are not accurate statements. There is no question in my mind that they are still juking the crime stats. That's why you see every single tweet from the FBI director and the FBI official account say the following. FBI and personnel were involved in the arrest. They are padding their numbers with just the wording. That's a classic tactic. It was used by Chris Wray all the time. I'm not a fan of Adam Schiff, although I think Adam Schiff pointed out that Kash Patel is unfit for that job. I am not a fan of Eric Swalwell. I think these guys are leftist simps. They do things that make me want to puke, but it doesn't mean that they're wrong when they lure out the inappropriate behavior of someone who is not worthy of the dignity of that job. And I had no idea how bad Patel was going to be. This is embarrassing. Donald Trump can do this. Kash Patel does not hold the personal gravitas to pull this kind of crap off. Watch this little exchange talking about the Epstein files in order to distract from it, because Patel is actually pretty well owned. What he says is that he did not review all the Epstein files. I wouldn't expect him to, but he has sort of led on that he's seen everything that there is, and if there was something there, he would have gone after it. He hasn't seen it. But here's Eric Swalwell doing it, and then what's his answer? He's going to start saying A, B, C, D. This guy's a chump. I'm sorry. Like, he is an unserious human being. This is not how congressional affairs are handled. It's equally bad to the lady who just looks off into the space and acts like she's on some sort of antidepressant or anti-anxiety drug. This is Swalwell.
Remembering your oath to tell the truth, did you ever tell Donald Trump his name is in the files?
I have never spoken to President Trump about the Epstein files.
Did you ever tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
The Attorney General and I have had numerous discussions about the entirety of the Epstein files and the reviews conducted by our team.
Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
And we have released where President Trump's name is in the Attorney's
It's a simple question.
file.
Did you tell the Attorney General that the President's name is in the Epstein files?
During many conversations that the Attorney General and I have had on the matter of Epstein, we have reviewed.
The question is simple. Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
That actually is a really simple question, guys. You don't have to like Swalwell. I certainly don't. There's almost nothing I would agree with him on politically. Did you say something to somebody? Why do we have a hard time with this?
Yes or no?
Why don't you try spelling it out?
Yes
if you're
or
gonna mock
no,
me?
Director?
Use the alphabet.
Yes or no?
No? A, B, C,
Director,
D, E, F?
it sounds like you don't want to tell us. Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name was in the Epstein files?
Why don't you try serving your constituency by focusing on reducing violent crime in this country and the number of pedophiles that are illegally harbored in your sanctuary cities?
That's obfuscation. He's doing everything he can to not answer this question. Why? This shouldn't be that hard of a thing. It's like, yeah, I talked to the Attorney General. Donald Trump's name is mentioned. It's not in a derogatory context. The FBI does this all the time. You could find Kyle Serafin's name, non-derogatory, fine. Why? Oh, he had a background investigation. We keep files on people we do background investigations on. Oh, he was mentioned because he was a fact witness in one of these things. This is super easy stuff to dispel. Or you could look like an asshole and say things like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Why don't you talk about pedophilia and child pornographers? Not relevant. Super simple. You're going to end up looking like a fool, and you are embarrassing your administration.
In California. I'll work with you on that.
Regular order, Mr. Chairman.
I'm the honest gentleman from California.
Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
The question has been asked and answered.
Except that it wasn't. That's embarrassing stuff. It's almost as embarrassing as having your DHS director go out on an ICE raid and hit an American citizen's house and then releasing the footage like it was a victory. There's this story that was put out. I don't have any reason to doubt it. It says that the DHS secretary touted an ICE raid in the Chicago area, and they actually knocked down and did an explosive breach or something to that effect on the wrong door. They hit the wrong house and they got 2 American citizens. That's not a good look. Again, if you're so desperate and thirsty for social media hits, we're not in a good space here. Our team, quote unquote, our team, should also be held to the accountability standard. We don't always have to agree with what the left has to characterize it as, but it doesn't mean that they're winning.
I spoke to that contractor over there. He was called by the homeowner to repair the damage. He says both the front door and back door are busted in. Now, Secretary Kristi Noem sent out a tweet that reads in part, "I was on the ground in Chicago today to make it clear we are not backing down." That post on X also included video showing several people being led away in handcuffs. We have witness video that was taken after a person describes hearing an explosion around 5:50 this morning. You can see armed officers shining flashlights at a door and into a window as well. Another neighbor told us about the response from law enforcement that came from the air.
Awakened at 20 to 6 by the drone of the helicopter flying overhead, circling the house, circling the neighborhood, spotlight on, right over the house. Very unusual in our usually quiet neighborhood.
Yeah, so now you're going to make people who probably don't care about politics think that you guys are doing Gestapo tactics when they know that their American citizen neighbor is being arrested. Because that's stupid. It's stupid. It reminds me of when the FBI went up in Alaska under Biden, and they were running after what? Nancy Pelosi's laptop, and the Anchorage or the Anchorage field office SWAT team hit the wrong people's house because they had the same jacket. They owned the wrong jacket. Like, God forbid. And did we ever see like huge apologies and mea culpa and we're going to do better? No, they don't do that. It's bad when you make people on CNN sound reasonable, and they're doing that. Again, both sides can do a better job. I don't have to agree with what the left says for the reason, but I can agree that the things that they're arguing about are reasonable things to be upset about. I just don't necessarily think their characterization is fair. Watch this. The FBI director is supposed to be conservative in so much as not being someone who makes a clown show of the office. And that's why Patel doesn't belong there anymore. And look, I'm going to show you something that I didn't know, but shame on me. It's been probably one of the most embarrassing things that I've backed up since I started doing this publicly. It's the most embarrassing endorsement that I've ever given.
There are some clear pitfalls in that.
The job of the United States Attorney General and the director of the FBI is stability, leadership, conservative, and I mean lowercase c, conservative, be careful, protect your people. And neither of them is doing that right now. Pam Bondi nor Kash Patel. I mean, for Kash Patel to tweet, "We've got the guy," and then have to retract it is humiliating. It undermines his own credibility and the credibility of the entire Bureau. I know more FBI agents than I can count, many of whom are Trump supporters who are horrified by the job he is doing. He is unqualified. Both of them are much more concerned with getting a viral tweet or a clip than with providing steady, sound, stable leadership for DOJ and the FBI.
I had the exact same thing said to me by senior and very apolitical and people who are totally reasonable human beings, people that I look to for interpretation and that I respect highly. And they don't care about the politics of it. They just don't think these people are serious. When you're going to have a phone call where you're screaming at someone because you didn't give me a photograph that I want to release on social media, and then I spend time in front of, let's say, 20 or 200 to 300 different federal employees, and I'm trying to plan out my tweet schedule of who's going to tweet what. Disgusting. And here's what I didn't know. And leave it to the Trump administration 2.0 to make me agree with Hank Johnson. People, do you know how weird this last couple weeks has been? I didn't know this story. I'm going to read this to you. This is from February 7th, 2025, prior to Patel being confirmed. If I had read this, I would have had a very different thought, but I was blinded by the need for an ally. I really was. I really wanted, and that's the confirmation bias we all have the potential of finding. You're like, I need an ally. This guy's saying the right things to me. I feel good about it. Let's effing go. Let's push him into the office. Trump's FBI pick, Kash Patel, took up to $5 million in stock from a Chinese e-commerce giant known as Shein, S-H-E-I-N. This is what I learned yesterday, and I didn't know that beforehand. This is a story that Wired magazine covered in February before his confirmation. Shame on me. I also didn't realize, this is another thing I'm just going to tell you before I hit that story. I also didn't realize that the Fight with Kash Foundation raised almost $1.3 million in the year of 2023 when I was endorsing and saying, go out there. They paid FBI whistleblowers a grand total of about $45,000 of that $1.3 million. Now, me, on the other hand, I raised $600,000 total for FBI whistleblowers. That included when I was running it for myself. And I think I had somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 worth of fundraising. You don't get every penny that you fundraise when you use a site like GiveSendGo. But we had $598,000 raised, of which about 40-something thousand were raised before the FBI whistleblower guys went out in front of Congress. After that, I raised another, let's say, $550. So a grand total of $598,000. I did the math last night. I gave away $550,000 of that money. Every penny that we raised went directly to Garrett O'Boyle and Marcus Allen. It took me 2 years to get it to them in a way that was legal and appropriate, but we got it done. We gave well over like $275,000 or $275,000 each to those men so their families could continue on. Patel raised $1.3 million, and he had $600,000 in expenses, allegedly, on the Fight with Kash Foundation. Consider that. I'm going to read this story. Donald Trump's pick for FBI director told senators he has no plans to divest his shares, which his financial disclosure form says were received in exchange for consulting services. We've heard Patel say that he doesn't know much about business. That's why he's not a billionaire and why he didn't own a private jet. Kash Patel, President Trump's nominee for head of the FBI, owns stocks valued between $1 million and $5 million in a company that controls Shein, a controversial e-commerce and fashion giant founded in China, according to lobbying and corporate records from the three countries reviewed by Wired. They show that Patel began consulting for Shein 1 month before the company also retained the services of the lobbying firm Ballard Partners, where Pam Bondi works, Trump's newly confirmed U.S. Attorney General. In a legally required financial disclosure, Patel told members of the Senate who are expected to vote on whether he would be confirmed next week, this is obviously before his confirmation, that he did not plan to divest his stake in Shein if he becomes the leader of the FBI, that he was allotted shares in the fast fashion company, which is reportedly worth $50 billion. He was given what are called restricted stock units. RSUs are often given to company employees who typically cannot cash them out until a certain amount of time has passed, like stock options. Disclosed that his Shein RSUs began vesting on February 1st, and they're expected to be paid out quarterly. Officially, or legally, an official like the head of the FBI would not need to divest or accuse himself until a clear conflict of interest emerges, says the Citizens for Responsible Ethics in Washington. That's CREW. They did a lot of lawfare against Trump. However, the optics of the situation are not great. And leave it up to this guy. This is Hank Johnson, the guy that we heard him say one time he was worried about Guam capsizing. I do not think this man is an intellectual, and yet he just absolutely buries this point home. And he did it yesterday, and I didn't know this before. And now that I've looked into it, I'm pretty upset.
Was able to hold certain stocks, and they made the decision.
You still hold the stocks that you have? You still hold on to these Chinese stocks, these stocks in this Chinese company?
I disagree that it's a Chinese company, but I was in the DOJ, when you're appointed, makes a call on what you can and can't possess.
Well, now, let me ask you this. Chinese companies steal trademarks. They produce counterfeit products and sell them over the internet on platforms such as Shein. They steal intellectual property. They steal data from American companies. And to me, it seems inconsistent with your role as FBI director that you would own stock in a company that is based in a country that is the nation's premier national security threat. It's like you are putting your own financial security over the security of the nation.
I disagree with that characterization.
Well, I think the American people look at it like it's a classic situation of the fox guarding the hen house.
I mean, can you find a worse scenario where Hank Johnson, who I look at all the time as being a buffoon, is saying something where we go, crap, that sounds true. In his financial disclosure, I'm back to the Wired piece here. In his financial disclosure, Patel said he began working as a consultant for an entity in the Cayman Islands. You tell me how this feels to you, okay? Patel said he began working as a consultant for an entity in the Cayman Islands called Elite Depot Ltd. in April of 2024, where he described which he described as a fashion management company. A Wired review of the corporate registration filings, lobbying disclosures, and other public records in the United States, the UK, and the Cayman Islands shows Elite Depot functions as a parent company for Shein. Shein is known for selling low-priced clothing made in China under intense scrutiny for Washington over its alleged unethical business practices when Patel began consulting for this company. Amid the controversy, Shein was struggling to obtain approval from financial regulators to go public in New York. In February that year, then Secretary Marco Rubio of Florida, now Trump's Secretary of State, urged the U.S. Security and Exchange Commission to halt Shein's planned IPO. In a financial audit, Shein submitted to regulators in the UK, where it's still trying to get its IPO. The company said its ultimate controlling party is Elite Depot Limited, a company registered in the Cayman Islands. So that's what Patel is saying. Technically, it wasn't a Chinese company because the company technically is registered in the Cayman Islands, even though they manage the Chinese firm. And then you go down to the bottom of the story here, which I will put this over on KyleSerafin.com. You guys can look at it there. They said something about Bondi. It says Patel's not the only member of Trump's orbit that Shein has courted. One of the lobbying firms that was hired to curry favor among U.S. lawmakers has numerous ties to the president and his administration. Ballard Partners, who we've talked about here previously. Ballard Partners was the place where Susie Wiles was a managing partner in Jacksonville. It is the place where Bondi was employed as a lobbyist. It also has a deal with All Serco starting in 2016, per the records I found. And Ballard Partners and All Serco means that it's also tied to John J. Kelly, who's a prominent Democrat lobbyist in Chicago. Ballard then would also be linked, I would say, indirectly to Julie Kelly, which we've brought up here before. Ballard Partners, which filings show registered first as a lobbyist for Shein in May of 2024. That's like, what, 2 months or a month and a half after Patel signed on with them, formerly employed both Bondi and Susie Wiles, Donald Trump's chief of staff. While filings don't indicate that Bondi ever lobbied for Sheehan directly, she was employed by Ballard Partners until being sworn in as the attorney general earlier this week. Guys, this stuff is the things that stink. These are unforced errors and they don't need to be made. They just don't. There's no upside to it. There's no reason why you need to have these sort of conflicts looking. So when people start talking about swampiness and we start looking at things that look like petty and basic corruption, this is what looks like corruption. You should be beyond reproach if you want to do a job. You shouldn't look like you're out there lying under oath. You shouldn't look out there saying things that are dishonest in principle because you're going to lose the basic people that do the job. What are we doing here? It does make me a little bit sick. And I think it comes from all sides. It's again, I can't get excited about any of these people. I want them to do better. I wanted them to de-weaponize this government. It doesn't seem like it's happening. All right, so that's it. If you guys are watching over on YouTube, make sure you guys like the video. If you're watching on Rumble, same story. We appreciate all of you guys. Subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. We've watched our subscribers bump up another 500 in the last couple of days. Awesome. Really appreciate that. Locals, you guys can join the community. You can financially support us or just be a free member. We're doing our call-in show tonight. The phone number was working yesterday. I will try it again today. We'll try it again tonight. Hopefully everything works the way it's supposed to. You have to be a subscriber if you want to call in and weigh in on anything. It's whatever's on your mind. You guys get up to 10 minutes to come and discuss it. So let's do that. Look forward to seeing all of you guys tonight. Again, that's at 8 p.m. Eastern time. That's 7 Central and whatever the heck time it is over in those other places where I don't live at the moment. Let's do a palate cleanse. This one comes from Charlie Kirk. He's talking about that thing that we talk about here a lot. Elite versus street communists. People on the left versus people who lead the left. Again, if we believe that there is a uniparty and all these people sort of have it, why is it that the folks who apparently care about the American middle class and seem to care about the working poor are the wealthiest people in America? Is it out of guilt or is there something else going on here? I think Charlie Kirk answered and asked that question very well and made people think. This is why he was dangerous to those types. Here we go. This is just a regular discussion. This is why I feel like this man still lives on, even though we saw something horrible last week.
The wealthiest counties in the country all vote for Democrats. You know that, right? 8 out of 10 of the wealthiest counties in the country vote for Democrats. The wealthiest people, absent Elon Musk, are all on the left. Jeff Bezos, George Soros, Mark Benioff, Mark Zuckerberg, Laureen Powell Jobs. On the left, yes. The richer you are, the more likely you are to be a Democrat and on the left.
Explain that to me, please.
The numbers speak for itself. The Democrats are the party of the oligarchy. Can you name one tech CEO outside of Elon Musk that is a conservative?
I personally think, let me think. Peter Thiel?
Yeah, that's one. That's one. Larry Page, Google, on the left, worth $120 billion. Sergey Brin, Google, $130 billion on the left. Laureen Powell Jobs, Mackenzie Bezos, Jeff Bezos.
If they're on the left, what has they done that was like, quote unquote, to do the left stuff?
Well, okay, so Larry Page gives money to left-wing NGOs all the time.
Like, if you're on the left, I don't think you will ever be this rich.
Well, they are. You know why? Because the left
because they're not.
No,
because they're not.
The left is a scam. The left uses
How
people.
is this?
Let me tell you why. It's a good question, actually. The left uses people like you that think that, oh, we're going to fight the rich. Well, they protect their oligarchy. While you guys have to keep on working hard to never own anything, when we conservatives are the ones that actually want to restore the American middle class and bring jobs back to this country.
How would you restore?
Let me finish. The left uses people like you every day, and they use people on you by the trans thing, the abortion thing. Keep voting for us because the fascists are going to take your rights away. When who's funding the left? The richest people. George Soros. Do you know who George Soros is?
Who is funding? Dude, I have never seen a leftist organization come to campus spreading their propaganda.
Well, because the whole university is a leftist organization spreading propaganda.
It's liberal. There is a clear-cut difference between a leftist and a liberal. Please make that
You're coming after this in a good way because I'll just say Democrat politics, okay?
Okay.
Almost every major, powerful, wealthy person in the country, over $100 billion in net worth, with the exception of one person, Elon Musk, is on the cultural left and gives money to the left. Mark Zuckerberg gave $400 million in the 2020 election to help get Joe Biden reelected through the Center for Technology and Civic Life. Mackenzie Bezos.
That helps his case, obviously. He would donate money to his...
Okay, but hold on. One second. Mackenzie Bezos with $45 billion, major Biden backer. Laureen Powell Jobs worth $20 billion. Steve Jobs' widow, one of the most radical left-wingers in the Emerson Collective. Mark Benioff from Salesforce worth $12 billion. One of the most radical left-wing guys that you'll see out there. The eBay guy, Omador, one radical left-wing. It's so important for you on the left. You guys are being scammed and gamed because they talk a good game about building the middle class, but it is not the party of democracy. It's the party of oligarchy. And you can go fact-check me tonight.
Okay.
There's more to that. There's a lot of that. Look how fast his mind's working. Again, I totally recognize doing that in the moment and being able to pull out that number of facts. And the problem is that it's not fixed on the right either. And there's examples of petty corruption and real corruption from all the other side too. Not the same amount of money, clearly, but the ideology and the instinct to go and just grab whatever works for me, no matter how much I sell out the people that believed in me, that gave money to my foundation, then I turned around and just used it to like plunder and profit for myself. There's a lot of stuff like that on the right as well. It's hard to be cheering for a team when the teams are all doing the same thing. And then there's us, regular people. I'm about as regular a person as you get. Here we are. I'm sitting in a room that I rent. I don't even own this place that we're in, like many of you. Or you live in a place that you own and you still have to rent it from the government with your property taxes. Ain't that something? All right. I'll see you guys tonight for the call-in show for those of you that'll be there. Otherwise, we'll start back again on Friday morning at 09:30. God bless all of you. I hope you have some time away. I might be on Alex Jones this afternoon. I think they asked me to be on at 1 o'clock Central. So if you guys want to check that out too, no idea what Alex wants to talk about, but it's always interesting to talk to Alex Jones, and I get another Alex Jones impression in my brain. So talk to you soon, and God bless you, and have a good rest of your Thursday, y'all.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.